how do you not get injured? Well, put your mind in the game. So pay attention. Leave the cell phone at home or turn it off. You know, if you're on the ski hill, forget about the boyfriend or girlfriend or the after ski party. Put your mind in the game. Pause for a second. Focus on what you're doing. Calm down and enjoy what you're doing. And if you do that, if you can keep your mind in the game, diminish the distractions, your mental errors will go down quite a bit and your injury rate will go down.
Dr. Kevin Stone, Play Forever, How to Recover from Injury and Thrive.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hi friends, thank you for joining us on the Adventure Sports Podcast. Today we're having one of those shows where we're offering resources and help and information that will make you more successful in your adventure sports and hopefully for the long term. We have Dr. Kevin Stone with us, and he is an orthopedic surgeon who is in San Francisco. He's written a book entitled Play Forever, How to Recover from Injury and Thrive, which I think is what we all want to do, but he also focuses a lot on how to avoid injury in the first place. Dr. Stone is a windsurfer. He likes cycling. He enjoys paddleboarding, skiing, backpacking, and many other sports. Welcome to the program, Dr. Stone.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to visit with you today. I think that the listeners, I drop enough clues. The listeners know that I've had some injuries in the last several years that have really tried to set me back. And so talking to someone like you, I don't think it matters if someone is a young adventurer or an older adventurer. Injury is probably our nemesis, our number one nemesis that keeps us from doing the things we love to do. Now, the one difference for me I've found is that when you're young, you heal quickly. And as you age, it becomes more challenging to heal quickly. I don't know what's up with that. Dr. Stone, how do we jump into this? I think the first thing I want to ask is, what are the common injuries that you see that are coming out of the adventure sports industry?
So let's step back and look at common injuries everywhere. And one of the things that we like to think about and remind our patients and our friends about is that most of the injuries that we do are mental errors first.
Oh.
So it's like you knew you were going a little too fast. You knew you shouldn't stick your leg out there. You knew you were just coming over that jump a little too much air. You just, in your brain, you sort of knew before that injury happened that, I'm in the wrong spot, or
right.
made the wrong move. So the first thing on injury prevention that we should talk about before we talk about how to treat it, how to come back, how to keep playing forever, which I'm passionate about helping people do, we should talk about how do you stay out of my office? And the best way to stay out of my office is obviously first not to get injured. And how do you not get injured? Well, put your mind in the game. So pay attention. Leave the cell phone at home or turn it off. You know, if you're on the ski hill, forget about the boyfriend or girlfriend or the after ski party. Put your mind in the game. Pause for a second. Focus on what you're doing. Calm down and enjoy what you're doing. And if you do that, and if you can keep your mind in the game, diminish the distractions, your mental errors will go down quite a bit and your injury rate will go down. And that's the first and most important thing, far more than stretching and weight training and fitness and being all the other things that we, of course, preach. But really, it's a mind game first.
You know, that's really smart. I mentioned on a previous show recently that when I was a young man, the question I would ask myself was, I wonder if I could do that, and I would try. And now, as a more seasoned, I'll say it that way, adventurer, my question is turning more into not could I do that, or might I be able to do that, or it's really shifted to should I try that right now.
So we don't want to put too much caution into the game because actually we love the could I do that.
Yes.
It's just could I do that, and what do I need to do that successfully? And if you can just put that phrase in, then you'll pause for just that second and think about preparation. We want you
Mm.
to have the wonder of, could I do that? We want you to push the envelope the same way we do in everything we do around medicine here. So keep that wonder, keep that smile, keep that aggression. Just put a little brain power into it too.
It's been about a year and a half ago now, but I had one of those moments where my brain had checked out. It was the last run of the day skiing, and I was going about 40 miles an hour in hard pack, and my son was in front of me. And I decided to pass him quickly on the left just because that would be really fun to do. And he, of course, at the same time, he decided to do a really aggressive turn to the left. It ended up, he skied over the tips of my skis. Not his fault. Totally not his fault. Completely my fault. My judgment was what caused this. But I had a double heel release swan dive onto the ice with my head, so I was out of commission for 9 months. Um, and that's not fun, because how can you have fun when you're on the bench?
Well, listen, if anybody really knew how dangerous skiing was, they'd
Oh, I
never
know.
do it.
Well, you probably know better than most, Dr. Stone. I've mentioned this recently too, but I did the best I could to statistically see how dangerous adventure sports were. And almost universally, they're safer than driving to where you do the sport, the trailhead or whatever it is. The exception is snow skiing. And
Right.
based on the statistics I was able to find, it's a similar danger to driving to the ski resort, which actually we would think, well, everybody drives, but everyone gets hurt driving too. So, anyway, skiing is surprisingly, I mean, we go very, very fast on hard surfaces and tend to slam into fixed objects.
Well, not to start this conversation off with a bummer, but the difference is that in the car, those injuries often get reported. And in skiing, most of them never get reported.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
the reality is that the underreporting of ski injuries and the reality of the number of them is really quite high. But in any case, let's go on to the more fun stuff because we all love to ski and we all do it. And it puts a huge smile on your face. There's nothing else you do in life really that you do all day with your kids. And that just is one of the reasons why it's just such a spectacular thing to do.
Well, and I agree 100%. I was recovering from a back injury about a decade ago. And my doctor at the time, I asked him, can I ski now? And he said, there's nothing more healing than getting out and doing something you love to do. Go ski.
Right.
And so,
Correct.
within limits, of course. Let's rewind just a little bit. So, we're going to be talking about this stuff more and hopefully gaining a lot of great advice and information on what we should be doing to remain injury free and how to recover quickly. But let's find out a little bit about Dr. Stone. So, I already said some of your favorite sports, and you're in the San Francisco area. Tell us what you're up to on an adventure sport.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm an orthopedic surgeon here in San Francisco. And so I divide my life between clinical practice, not-for-profit research, and for-profit research. And then, of course, all the sports that we love to do. So just to explain a little bit, so on the clinical practice, we fix shoulders, knees, and ankles, mostly knees. We focused on a lot of biologic knee replacement, which we can talk about in a little bit, where we put back meniscus cartilage and regrow people's damaged articular cartilage and ligaments. And then on the not-for-profit side, we do a lot of research on how to accelerate healing. Why does it take a year to come back from an ACL injury? And a
Yeah.
lot of research on treating, preventing, and curing arthritis, which we now have the ability to do in certain cases. And then on the for-profit research, I like to invent things, and we start up companies every once in a while, which is fun. But I live in San Francisco, live in Mill Valley, work in San Francisco. So to get to work this morning, I took my motorboat across San Francisco Bay. This
Nice.
afternoon, the wind will blow. So hopefully, with hope, we'll be out windsurfing there. And so we use all of the resources of the San Francisco Bay Area for sport, for biking, for water skiing, for windsurfing, for all the things we love to do. And we live on the side of a mountain in Marin, so we get to hike and climb there. And there's just the biggest problem on living here is as for you living in Gunnison is sports stress. What sport are you going to do that day? And do you have the equipment? Do you have the friends? And that may be a tough problem to have, but it's lovely.
Something, this is almost off track, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway just to see what your response is. The mental health industry in Gunnison have recognized that actually a big stressor is with people who feel like they can't keep up. And the reason is this is such an athletic community, outdoors sports oriented, and for people who, they're not candidates for the Olympics, they feel left behind a lot in this community. And it's actually a real challenge for people's sense of well being.
Well, that is a reality. And the only thing I can say is that, mostly we play sports for ourselves, and
Yes.
look inside yourself and think about what your own personal goals are. And the most important thing is to stop working out. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is that play out. Do something that makes you
Yes.
fun, makes it fun for you. Do it with other people. If it's in the weight gym, join up with other people and lift weights together. If it's a bike ride, go ride with somebody else. The more fun you put into everything you do, and generally the more social it is, the healthier you're going to feel and be in life. And so
Hmm.
we try to get rid of that word workout, go play out, make everything play. And our goal is to help you play forever, which is the title of that book that we wrote and put a lot of information in. And we want you to drop dead at age 100 playing the sport you love.
I love it. That's a beautiful goal right there. I really appreciate the idea instead of work out, play out. And that's been one of the primary objectives of the Adventure Sports podcast for the last 10 plus years has been find something you love to do because it'll motivate you to go move and experience the joy of being athletic, connecting with nature, the community and the social aspects of doing adventure sports together. We believe the benefits are just off the charts, but I've never heard it said that way. Quit working out, start playing out. That's really good. That's very, very good. Dr. Stone, play forever. That's a beautiful goal, like you just said. You want to be 100 still doing what you love. But there must be some mindset oriented things or approaches to things that create a lifestyle that makes that possible. And I'm curious about those sorts of details that would help us all to play forever.
Well, the first thing is do some exercise every day, not 5 days a week or 3 days a week, really seven
Mm,
days a week. And the reason for that is number one, all those circulating endorphins and pheromones and adrenaline and wonderful dopamine, all the things that make you feel so good are actually quite addictive. And if you do them every day, if you start missing days, you'll feel bad. You'll feel badly that you missed your play out. And
there you
so
go.
organize your life so that you can do something every day. And that's the first step, and it doesn't much matter what it is you're doing as much as that you're having fun, preferably social, and you do more of it and enjoy it. So that's step one. Step two, I think on the diet side, we've all learned, eat what grows in the ground. The less processed in general, the better it's going to be for you.
Right.
Most of the diets that we've all learned about generally fall back to the principle of bias your diet towards healthy, lean protein and use fat and carbohydrates as condiments. And if you do that, and if you hydrate well with water as your primary beverage, number one, it'll be cost effective. Number two, you'll stay more hydrated. And number three, you'll just feel better because we all function in a relatively dehydrated state. You sleep all night, your mouth breathe, you drink coffee in the morning, you do all the things that are bad relative to hydration. And then you hope that your brain's going to be working well and your muscles are going to be working well. And so, in general, if you can just up your hydration with water, up your diet with protein, those are real and generally use things that are foods that are grown in the ground. That's as basic a principled approach towards nutrition. And then if you can optimize your weight, look, all of us take 2 to 3 million steps per year in normal
Mm,
walking,
yes.
and at up to 5 times your body weight, depending on the height of the step or landing. So if you lose 10 pounds, that's up to 50 pounds, 2 to 3 million times per year. It's an enormous amount of weight that you take off your joints. So optimizing your weight for your body height and habitus is really an important step to do. So you start out there, that's a pretty good basic, hey, how do I put myself in position to play forever? And then the other things are that certainly, we're biased. We see sports injuries and arthritis, and we always kind of shake our head a little bit because we know that had we seen that injury when it was fresh, we would have a much better shot at a repair or replacement or preventing of arthritis. And so when you get injured, get a good workup, find out exactly what's wrong, and then make a good treatment plan for that. So the most common thing we all hear and see about is, hey, doc, I tore my meniscus. That's the shock absorber inside your knee joint. I lived with it for a while. It got more and more painful. I then had a surgeon take it out. And here I am in your office 5 or 10 years later with knee arthritis.
Right.
So that story we hear over and over and over again. So if you unfortunately have the injury, make an accurate diagnosis, get an X-ray, MRI, careful physical exam, find a doctor who will repair it for you. If you lose a lot of it, replace it early on. Meniscus replacement now has become very common for us here in San Francisco. And we just only wish we could have done it for people before they developed severe arthritis. We can still do it when they have arthritis. We just published a paper last year on meniscus replacement in patients over 50 who were referred to us with knee joint arthritis for a partial or total knee replacement. We put a meniscus back in, regrow their cartilage, and 42% of them got 8 years of relief before they had a joint replacement. And the other 48% never came to a joint replacement in a 2 to 25 year outcome study. So the whole field of biologic replacement has become so much better, but starts with a good early accurate diagnosis and good treatment early on. So that's my encouragement to all your listeners. We really do want you to drop dead on the trail at age 100, and we really do think we can keep you there one way or another.
Oh, I love that. What you pointed out is what I want to highlight about what you just pointed out is that this is not the way it was 10 or 20 years ago. We've moved on to greater success, better understanding, better techniques, that there are things available to us now that can make a real difference. So when you're talking to someone from 20 years ago who's sharing their experience, it doesn't mean that will be your experience.
Yeah, and sure, all of your listeners have either heard about or gone and tried some aspect of stem cells. And so it's an important part to talk about how things have changed. So we're now in what I call the anabolic era of orthopedics. So in the past, you'd get an injury, the doctor would take out your tissue, they'd jam in cortisone, which would degrade your tissues, and then tell you go home, wait for your knee replacement or other joint replacement.
Wow.
So now what we do is when we see many injuries, we try to stimulate a healing response. And we can do that with the growth factors that are in your blood. It's called PRP, which many people hear about. We can do that by recruiting your own stem cells. Each of you walking around, no matter what your age, have billions of stem cells in your body. And so the way the field is going is rather than us inject cells into you, which many people have gone off to Mexico or the Caymans to get a stem cell injection, we now know that we can mobilize all of the stem cells that are in your body rather than injecting a few million, which generally tend to die. So the field is growing rapidly in the space of how do we mobilize your healing ability so that we can repair tissues or augment the repair of tissues and help you heal from injuries. Now, many of our patients ask, hey, I've got an arthritic knee. Should I do a lubrication or a growth factor injection? And I have to tell you, the answer usually is yes, you should try. We tend to combine all those into a special cocktail that we think works particularly well, but there are lots of versions of how do you get to a great result. And I have many patients who come in just before ski season with terrible looking x-rays, bone on bone, awful. And they say, hey, doc, I'm just not letting you operate on my knee until that cocktail injection you give me doesn't get me through the ski season. So I don't know if I'm helping my patients further destroy their knee or if I'm just helping them stay out of surgery. But in either case, it's a good way to see whether or not you really do need to have a surgical procedure after you've developed arthritis. And then the other thing to know is that robotics have totally changed our approach towards partial and total knee replacements. We can do them so accurately now that we don't have to put in bone cement anymore, which means we can get people back to full sports, full skiing and running and impact and hiking and climbing. So there's no longer a reason to be scared of having a partial or a total artificial knee if you've really worn out the joint. And on that point, 80% of people told that they need to have a total joint replacement actually don't. They
Mm.
could have either injection or a biologic approach or a partial replacement. And the other 20% actually do need to have one. And now we can do that without cement using robotics as an outpatient. So this entire field of what I call anabolic orthopedics is growing fast, is fascinating, keeps us all doing the sports we love. And that's really our goal.
What about shoulders? We've been talking about
Yeah.
knees. Let's talk about
Yeah.
shoulders.
So we have the fun of repairing shoulders, knees, and ankles. Shoulders are a totally other world than other joints, and as are ankles. They're really different biology, different mechanics, different shapes. The most common things we see from our adventure sports athletes are either a dislocation, which we repair arthroscopically, usually right away, so that they don't develop instability, or rotator cuff tear. Those are probably the two most common. Unfortunately, rotator cuff repairs are getting better. They're still painful for people. They're still slow to heal, and we're trying to add things to accelerate that healing. But those are the two most common. They're both fixable. They're both back to full sports. The arthritis of the shoulder is another story, though, where we've made huge progress in the knee and the ankle on regrowing cartilage in those spaces. We have not made huge progress in the shoulder. When the shoulder gets arthritic, it's very difficult to reverse that course in any meaningful way. And eventually, shoulder replacements are what are done for people when they have bone on bone arthritis in the shoulder.
Mm. So we have some room to grow when it comes to treating the shoulders.
We really do. You know, the other joint, the ankle, that we see a lot, fortunately, ankle arthritis is really quite rare unless you've had an injury. So if you fracture your ankle, if you dislocate your ankle, if you've lived with chronic instability, you can get ankle arthritis. And in the past, the only two choices were a fusion or a joint replacement. And now, fortunately, we can open up that ankle, graft the cartilage, mobilize it, remove the spurs, and keep many people going, even with their arthritic ankle, and going in sports as well.
Oh, wow. That's great. I want to rewind to prior to the injury again a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you could help us with the right headspace.
Yep.
You know, you already talked about paying attention so you don't get hurt, but
Yep.
a lot of our listeners, a lot of our guests do endurance style sports. They're going the distance, and sometimes they're committed to the distance, not because they're trying to prove something, because it's that far to get out, right?
Yeah.
Wherever they've gone into, they have to get out at some point for food, water, safety, whatever it is. And I've seen this happen a lot where people have a long way to go and they start developing pain. And what is a warning sign is something they have to get out. So they keep going. And that little bit of warning sign pain becomes a significant injury. What do we do?
Yeah. It's a great question because there are not good answers. Um, it's interesting. We can take some lessons from the endurance sports athletes that we're seeing. We're seeing so many people enter 100 milers now and even 250. Just enormous sport, running races that are going distances that we've never seen before on a regular basis.
Sure.
And those athletes also develop joint pain at different stages of these endurance runs. And the question is, can you do anything about it? Can you change your shoes? Can you change your gait? Can you make a meaningful difference that mid-event would help protect your joints? And the real answer is we don't know the answer. We try everything, but we really don't have good solutions. It's a mechanics problem. It's a loading problem.
You know, one thought that I've had is, well, if I take more breaks and let my muscles rest, will they do a better job of holding my joint together until I get out of here? You know, that sort of thing. Sometimes maybe there's something to be said for let's worry less about the finish line and worry more about getting to the end of this event, going the distance in a way that will allow us to continue to do the sport we love?
So one of the things I would tell you in preparation for that is mechanics matter. So just as I said, the surfaces matter. So what can you do? You know, all of us who've had children have used coaches, and tutors, and helpers
Sure.
to help those kids succeed. And yet, many of us forget that we can grab a coach, we can grab a physical therapist, we can grab a trainer, we can grab a good fitness coach to look at our body mechanics. How are we walking? How are we carrying a pack? How are we moving? How tight are our joints? Are we really flexible or not? Are we walking in a gait that would tend to wear out a joint, like a car that's out of line and wears out the tires faster? So one of the things you can do is take a step back, take a body inventory, a mechanics inventory, grab a good coach and work with them for a little while and look to see what are your mechanics. And you'd be surprised how much a good coach can help you.
Mm. You know, a personal story. I took a group of young men to climb Snowmass, and that's about a 20-mile round trip, 14,000-foot climb. Well, the whole climb is obviously a part of the 14, but it is a 14er. And on the way back from that climb, I was in a significant amount of knee pain. And I sat down and I said out loud, someday I'm going to have to find someone to teach me how to walk.
Right.
But I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. And I finally did find someone who taught me how to walk. And it has really helped my joint pain. But where can people go when they realize I must be doing something wrong?
Good physical therapists are a great place to start. There are so many great ones around, and they have different approaches. A good manual therapist that knows how to, mobilize tissues and look at gait and assess where you are is a really great place to start.
Okay, that sounds good. I liked what you said about looking at gait. So, are some physical therapists more experienced or trained in that type of analysis?
Whether they're trained or not, it's like anybody else, they have different skills.
Right.
And a really great physical therapist just gets it, understands how to look at mechanics, look at body motion, and you can tell pretty much as a patient there, within the first few minutes if you're in the right hands or not.
Okay. So, just a hypothetical. Let's say that you were with me on that 20-mile round trip 14er and I started limping pretty badly. What would you tell me to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. Oh, give your pack to someone else because the mechanics are making your joints worse.
Hmm.
If you have time to ice down or stick your knee or ankle in a stream, that's a good way to do it. If you have time to pause and stretch, that's a good way to do it. All the little things that help you change the mechanics of how you're walking and loading.
Okay. There's a lot that people can learn about that so they can do better self care.
Yep.
But I'm not the one to recommend anything. I'm just saying I know it's out there. And I think that your book, Play Forever, How to Recover from Injury and Thrive, it's probably a great resource.
Good place to start. It's on Amazon. I also write a blog each week at stoneclinic.com/blog, talking about all of these topics. And you can find all of them at that site. And every Sunday morning it comes out, and I put a lot of effort into those. So I'd love to have your feedback and feedback from your listeners.
Oh, that's awesome. Say that again. The blog
So it's
name.
at stoneclinic.com
Okay.
slash blog.
stoneclinic.com/blog.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, story time. We got to
There you
hear
go.
some stories. I know that you have done a lot of adventures and had a lot of experiences with those. So tell us about a time that stands out in your mind as life impacting, just like I am so glad that I did this thing. Whether it turned out for good or not, give us a life impacting story.
Well, there are many of them, but one that just jumps to mind for one reason or another is on Rainier. So I decided when our kids were about 10 and 12 or so, maybe 12 and 14, um, that we should do a winter sports camping trip and learn winter skills, how to dig a snow cave, how to prepare in the winter storms, and how to climb in an environment that's challenging. Uh, our friends ran Rainier mountaineering, so went up and took the family on a Rainier trip.
Wow.
Uh, Unfortunately, it was raining on the first day, and we learned the lessons of starting out in the rain and shifting into high snow conditions,
Oof.
windy conditions of 70 miles an hour, having the guides' GPS units freeze over so they can't find their way. Uh, and all the things that winter camping, winter storms, winter surprises
Right.
present to everybody in life. And I think the lessons of that trip still live in all of our minds about not to rely on technology, to really use your good skills in the mountains for to protect yourself, and realize that all technology can fail. GPS units can freeze over and not be
Sure.
visible.
Yep.
Experienced guides can lose their way. Groups can have group dynamics that uh, are different from your own skill sets. And so I think the lesson of that trip and that adventure was really prepare and know that the worst can happen. Don't rely on technology. Know where you are, and always have an exit plan.
Oh, that's great. So I have to pry just a little bit. In the end, you're still with us. That's good. So what happened in the end with that trip?
Well, we did make it up to Muir Camp after 7 hours, what should be a couple-hour hike up. And we did all in our group survive, but another group that came up in spring clothes, unfortunately, dug a snow cave, didn't manage it properly, and one of them did pass away in the
Oh,
night.
no.
As a physician and other physicians on our side of it, set up a rescue situation for them and saved the other two people's lives, but weren't able to save that guy's life. So uh, our family learned a lot of lessons in that experience. We did get to do a day of snow rescue, snow cave, rappelling, all the things we wanted to learn. We didn't make the summit on that trip. We all decided we were lucky to be alive when the sun finally came
Wow.
out. And as we were walking down the mountain, we heard this enormous roar, turned around, looked up, and there's a massive avalanche coming off Rainier, just reminding us about anything can happen.
Mm. I've said this before. I love it when nature flexes her muscle, but I don't want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
But I think sometimes humanity needs a dose of humility, and nature will certainly give it to you
Every time. So,
every time. Man, that sounds like a tragic but also magnificent trip and all the lessons learned. And
yeah.
one thing I think a lot of our listeners already know this, but you mentioned it was raining first and it transitioned into snow and high winds and all the things. I think the hardest conditions to survive are when it's about 33 degrees and snowing wet, heavy flakes with wind. That's probably the most dangerous weather for a backpacker or a hiker, a mountaineer. I mean, if it's 0 degrees and the snow is dry, it's easier to survive. And I'm saying from experience, every time I enter into that rain mixed with snow, that's where I'm like, man, hypothermia is inches away from everyone. This is what's really dangerous to me.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, how about a story when things went extraordinarily well?
Oh, we've got millions of those because we've been traveling, adventuring all our lives. We've got two daughters who are now both physicians. We've sailed all around the world in different times, bareboat sailing and chartering boats, and done lots of adventures together. I would just tell you in summary that travel with your kids, travel with your family, travel with your friends. Just get out there and make it a group experience. And you can kind of center that down to almost every time you're going out for a play out or an adventure. Just grab
Sure.
other people. And I can't tell you how important socializing your sports and activities are. They lead to a long-term sense of well-being and health at every age.
I think you may have just answered the question I was getting ready to ask. And that is, you said to play out every day so that it becomes a habit, but also so those endorphins can become addictive and call you back out to do more of it. And I was going to ask, how would you motivate people to actually get started doing that? Because it's not easy to put the screen down that's feeding you, feel good hormones without any effort.
Yeah, yeah. So get a trainer. Start out with a trainer. and a coach of some kind and help you assess your skill sets and help you pick your sports and activities. For our executives, we take care of lots of traveling executives around the world. When they're traveling, book a hotel and book the gym, but don't just book the gym, book the trainer who works at the gym. So it's just another appointment on your schedule that day, like any other appointment on your schedule. And you make that appointment if you have a booking with a trainer, and you might not make it if it's just, oh, you're going to go to the gym. So little things like that make a big difference in how easy you make your life to be able to do something every day. So just look at your schedule, put that slot in like any other important meeting, like any other important session, like any meal. That play out session is as important as everything else you do in life.
Wow, I like that. You also mentioned the social aspect, and I'm thinking about the times that I had to meet someone to do something, and I may not have gone otherwise because life happens, right?
Right.
But if you have to meet someone to do something, then it's like, oh, I guess I got to go. I got to meet this person. We made a commitment.
You got it.
So planning activities with other people, brilliant. I'm gonna have to try that a little bit more in my own life. Taking the podcast back over from Mason Gravely, it's created a wonderful opportunity, but my workload has really increased. And I found myself getting through a very long, yesterday was 14 hours. And at the end of the day, I was like, I never even took a walk. And I can't go that way, and I don't think anyone should. But it illustrates another point, and that is we have a very busy society. And not everyone is, but many people find themselves with tight schedules, overcommitted. You have any recommendations for us?
It's really pause and smell the roses. And so I think that we all realize that life is short and that you'll be remembered for the important things you do and not the unimportant ones. And so pause and think about, if you only have a few hours left, is that really how you want to spend an hour?
That's very good. And I think the cousin or the complement to that might be, what could I do tomorrow so that I can take care of myself today? And I am lousy at that. Dr. Stone, that is where I really mess up because I'm always trying to get everything done today. But if I can tell myself, some of these things could probably happen tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Then that would open up a window to make today more balanced.
There you go. And if they don't happen, they probably don't matter.
So you said that you're likely to go windsurfing today.
I'm looking out my window right now and checking out the wind. Hopefully. We'll see.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. I don't want to take advantage of more than I should. How are we doing on your schedule?
I'm just about to do another appointment.
Okay, in that case, I won't ask another big question, but I will say thank you so much for sharing with us. It provides a lot of hope for people that have an injury to say, no, there are new techniques and new things, less invasive, more successful that they can do. And so thank you, Dr. Stone, for your time. Again, your book is Play Forever, How to Recover from Injury and Thrive. And the blog you mentioned is stoneclinic.com/blog. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Any parting words for us?
Yeah, listen, we obviously are enthusiasts about living life to its fullest. And anytime I can help people do that, it's a thrill for me, and it's just part of what makes us tick. And so I work very hard at publishing information, putting it on that website at stoneclinic.com, writing a book about it, talking to you and others about it, and just trying to infuse people with the enthusiasm for playing and for being outdoors and for doing things that make them happy. And I think if you do that, you'll be far more productive in life than if you don't.
Oh, that's that's wonderful. Everyone, Dr. Kevin Stone helping you to get out there and have some fun.
That's our goal.
Thank you. Hi, friends. Dr. Stone did such a fantastic job with that interview, and I just want to say thank you again, Dr. Stone. But we have a little bit of time left, so I was thinking about snow caves. Dr. Stone brought up snow caves and trying to learn those skills with his family in rough conditions. And, they really can save a life. And so I thought maybe I would share 3 or 4 types of snow caves and quickly how to make them. And I've experimented with a lot of different snow caves over the years. The reason is the most common type of snow cave that people make is what people might call a Quonset hut or something like that. And essentially what you're doing is you're mounding up snow if there's not enough, mounding up snow into a big mound and then digging out a hollow on the inside of it. And the problem with that is this. If you are using that style of snow cave to try to survive when you're already cold, you're already wet, you're caught in a situation where you need quick warmth to avoid hypothermia, that may not be the snow cave for you. And the reason I say that is that they can take 2 or 3 hours to make, and because you have to roll around in the snow to dig out the hollow on the inside, it sometimes is too little, too late. And now, those snow caves, if done properly, are very, very warm, and they will save your life. And if you have the time to make one, then maybe that's a great way to go. I would recommend, though, that if it looks like you might find yourself caught in a bad situation and you need emergency shelter, I might recommend starting early or trying a different type of snow cave. But I'm going to go ahead and describe how to make that snow cave, and I believe that I outlined some of this not too long ago, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. But snow conditions matter a lot. If you are somewhere where it's cold and the snow is that light, fluffy powder, then it's very hard to get the snow to consolidate enough to make that cave quickly. And if you get in a hurry, then it will collapse, and then you've wasted all your time and effort, which I did do in one blizzard on one winter camping trip. It was getting very, very cold. It was already almost completely dark. We threw the snow up into a mound, and I started digging it out too soon because it was getting very, very cold, and it was very, very dark. Long story short, it did collapse as I was digging it, and we were out of time to try again. So luckily, we had brought a four-season tent with us just in case. And what we did is we hollowed out the inside of the cave where it collapsed. So the sides of the cave offered windbreak and insulation, and then we pitched the tent on the inside. And we did just fine because we had a nice windbreak and a good tent. But to avoid that, you want to make your mound early, and you want to give it a good period of time to consolidate so you can dig it out. And I don't know how long a good period of time is because that depends a lot on the conditions. But one thing that helps is if you have snowshoes or skis on, then as you make the mound, try to pack it down. And, of course, you don't want to destroy it, but you want to pack it down as best you can because when you compress the snow, a little bit of moisture releases and it helps all the snow crystals to lock together more quickly. And then you do want to walk away from it at least an hour, I would say, maybe even longer depending on the snow conditions. Now, if you're working with wet, heavy snow that you can make an easy snowball out of, then you can probably dig that out right away as long as you've packed it down. But again, if you try to make a snowball and it wants to just crumble in your hands, then it's going to be tough. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Another thing you can do to save time, and I mentioned this before, is you can pile up your backpacks and mound the snow on top of them, and then when you pull the packs out, it'll leave a partial hollow to get you started, and that can save quite a bit of time.
Oikos presents 15 Seconds of Strength.
Here we go. Steve's got a trunk full of groceries and no one to help him.
Oh, that's tough, Jim. Looks like a 5-trip load at least.
He grabs the first bag, the second. Bob, it looks like he's trying to do it all in one trip. He shimmies the door open, steps over the dog, and he stumbles.
Oh, right into the kitchen without missing a beat. Jim, now that's a man who eats his protein-packed Oikos.
With 15 grams of complete protein in each cup, Oikos Triple Zero can help build strength for every day. Oikos, stronger makes everything better.
You want the door to be low, below your sleeping surface. So sometimes we'll dig a very low tunnel that goes up into the snow cave, and heat rises, so that allows you to stay in the warm part And then another thing you must always do is put a vent hole in the top of the snow cave. You can do that from inside with a ski pole or a stick. You could do it from the top, but you don't want to cave it in. So anyway, push a good-sized hole. I'd say 3 to 4 inches in diameter through the roof. And the idea there is you always want air exchange. You don't want, the air to get stale and stuffy on the inside. You want to be able to have that fresh air coming in. And even though that's a hole, it won't make you overly cold. It'll just give you the fresh air that you need to be safe. It is kind of surprising how big of a mound you need. And then when you're digging it out from the inside, if the walls get too thin, then it's going to collapse in on you. And one trick that's kind of useful is you can put sticks into the mound that are maybe 18 inches. I think that's a good wall width or thickness. You can put those sticks, like I said, about 18 inches into the outside of the mound, all the way around. And that way, as you dig out the snow cave, when you hit the stick on the inside, you know that you're about the right thickness. So just a quick little tip that might help you to get the thickness right. And why 18 inches? You do not need that much for insulation. A snow cave is very, very warm. It's just for structure so that it will stand up. And when you first dig it, it's going to be a little bit weak, but you'll be surprised. By morning, the snow will have consolidated to the point that you can jump up and down on the top of the thing and it won't fall through. Matter of fact, it will last for weeks or maybe even months if it's cold enough. If it's iffy, if you're not sure if that cave is really, really solid or not, then maybe you should have chosen a different type of snow cave, because sometimes they will collapse down on you and holy cow, you're in a sleeping bag and one falls down on you. It's dark. You're already confined in the bag. It could be very, very difficult to punch your way out of that. So it actually is a little bit spooky, especially if you're claustrophobic. So here are some options that may not be quite as warm, but might be faster to make and definitely give you more options for not getting stuck in a collapsed cave. So one that I like that requires no tools to speak of, all you need is maybe a snow ski. And what you do is you find a place where you can pack down the snow. And pack it down just slightly wider than your body, or if there are two of you, then just slightly wider than two bodies, or maybe just about the same. The whole idea is that the smaller it is, the warmer it's going to be. So pack that snow down with your skis in a long rectangular pit. And you want it to be about twice as long as you are tall. A little bit more than that, actually. So imagine a trench. You're just packing the snow down the right width, but about maybe 2.5 times as long as you are tall. Then you're going to walk away from that and let that snow consolidate. And then you take off a ski and you use the ski to cut the snow into blocks, kind of like you would cut snow to make an igloo. Now, if it won't cut, it crumbles and that kind of thing, then you're going to need to let it consolidate longer. You might need to pack it down some more. But if you have the kind of snow conditions where the snow packs well, then you can cut long, skinny blocks that are the length of the width of the pit, and maybe a foot or slightly less than a foot wide. So imagine a block that's going across the floor of the pit. So what happens is this consolidated block opens up the pit to make it larger so you have more room, and then you put the block, you get two of them, and you put them on the upper edges of your pit, and you make an A-frame. So you lean the blocks against each other into an A-frame structure. That's the reason why the pit needed to be twice as long as you are tall, and plus a little bit. The whole idea is to make enough blocks that you can have two blocks leaning on each other all the way down and get a little bit more than your body length. And as you put those up, you can pack the crevices, put them in tight, but you can pack any gaps with snow that will help to hold everything together. And then, of course, at the head of the pit, you're going to need to stack some blocks. And then at the bottom, you're probably going to want to put some blocks for a door. And this type of pit or snow cave, it's a little bit faster to make than just piling the snow and trying to hollow out the inside. You can test the firmness of the snow as you go, so it's less likely to collapse. And it's not going to collapse once it's built. It's going to be a very solid cave. And it'll also be very, very warm. I like that one better. It's faster. It's a little safer. Not quite as warm in some instances. Depends on what a good job you do, how well you do in building it. But you don't even need a shovel for it. You can just do it with a snow ski. And what's nice is you're not laying down in the snow trying to dig a hole with snow falling in your face and soaking your clothing. Very, very good when you need to stay dry to stay warm. You can work from the outside and not get wet. So that A-frame snow cave, I highly recommend it, but practice it when it's not an emergency so that you're really, really good at it. There's a third type of snow cave that we decided to try one year. And the reason was because we thought if it was really an emergency and we really needed to get out of the weather quickly, then maybe we needed an alternative to a full-blown snow cave. So what we did is we took some tarps, and fairly good-sized tarps. 8 by 10 is probably too small. 12 by 16 might be a little too big, but 12 by 16 would certainly do it. But a decent size tarp. And tarps are fairly light, so it's not a horrible thing to carry with you. Then what you do is you dig a pit in the snow, and you're going to want to dig the pit, again, just a little bit wider than your shoulders or a little bit wider than two people's shoulders if you have someone with you. And the snow that you dig out of the pit, you want to pile around the outside edges of the pit. Then you need to get some paracord or other strong cord and string it between two trees pretty low over the pit, but high enough that it is above the snow. Then you're going to put your tarp over the paracord and tie it to the paracord so the wind doesn't blow it off. And now you have an A-frame tarp with snow walls on both sides. Then pile up snow at the head and foot, the openings of the A-frame tarp, and then you'll use snow to pack down the outer edges of the tarp. And if you have other anchors like sticks or any sort of a snow anchor that you can use to additionally pull down the tarp and pack it down, that's probably a good idea. It's also great if you have more paracord, you can loop the paracord into the grommets, the holes in the tarp, and you can pull that further away and anchor it with sticks or tie it to a tree to keep it down in case of high winds. Now, you make sure that everything is sealed up, and what you have is a snow pit with a tarp over it in an A-frame design. They're not as warm as full-blown snow caves. The reason is because you don't have as much insulation. But we did a trip this way. We were at about 11,000 feet, and a blizzard came in. The temperatures were as cold as, we didn't have a thermometer, but they were as cold as I've experienced snow camping. And we dug our pits. We put up our tarps just like I described. We did take time to boil some water, and we put the hot water in our Nalgene water bottles and threw those in the bottom of our sleeping bags. Now that is, I don't know who first told me that, but that is such a luxury when you're snow camping like this, because that water will stay warm, inside of that bag for hour after hour after hour. And if you're chilled when you get in the bag, you instantly have a source of warmth. Feels so good. And you also have melted water the next morning when you wake up, or in the night if you need a drink. Just don't hurt yourself drinking boiling water, obviously. The next morning, this is how cold it was. The next morning, I was trying to put my boots on, and they're a little stiff because of the cold. And a lot of people sleep with their boots inside of their sleeping bag, which is not a bad idea, but my sleeping bag wasn't big enough for that. So anyway, I had to take my gloves off and try to put a foot in the boot. And by the time I got one foot in one boot, my hands were getting frostbite. And so, I put my gloves back on. I do the snow dance. That's where you kind of jump up and down. You wave your arms until you get the warmth flowing into your extremities again. And then I put on the other boot, and I started getting frostbite. I'm not kidding. It was that cold. I did the snow dance. I found some sunshine. I tied one boot, put my gloves back on, and did the snow dance, and then tied the other boot. I don't know how cold this was, folks. Easily 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but probably well below that. very, very cold night. And the point is, the pit with the tarp, you can build it quickly. You can stay dry while you build it. It's not going to collapse on you, and it will save your life. Is it as warm as a full-blown snow cave? No, it is not. But is it adequate shelter in very cold conditions? And if you're already warm and experienced, then I would say yes, it absolutely will be adequate shelter in cold conditions, especially if you can do the water bottle trick, with some hot water in the water bottle. So anyway, that's 3 different ways to build snow caves, and it's so much fun to do. So I would recommend building snow caves with your friends, with your family, with your kids. Do it just for the fun of it when it's not a life and death situation, and you'll quickly realize with experience how much time it takes, how different snow conditions impact how well it goes for you in trying to build these. And, I've made so many different snow caves and so many different types, and we've really, really enjoyed winter camping in them. Sometimes they just make them in the yard as a place for the kids to play. Oh, and I should mention, I said to use tarps to make the A-frame tarp over a pit. You should always have a tarp with you in the wintertime. If you're going into the backcountry without a tarp, you're just asking for trouble. I mean, it will save your life in so many different ways. You can use tarps in emergencies, probably a dozen different ways or more. But one of the things is, whenever you're snow caving, you need to be dry. If you're not dry, it's going to be a problem. And part of staying dry is not sleeping directly on the snow. So you do need a tarp, even in a snow cave, just to put the tarp down so you have a dry layer between you and the snow. And if you want to be comfortable, make sure you have a nice, warm sleeping pad under your sleeping bag, nice, warm, 0 degree or better sleeping bag, all the things. But what if you're in an emergency situation and you don't have a tarp? What are you going to do? I would recommend that you line the bottom of a snow cave with pine boughs or leaves, whatever light, fluffy, dry material you can find. Line it with enough of that you're no longer sitting in the snow getting wet. That's really important to stay dry. And you can also stuff dry, fluffy material inside of your clothes. It's itchy, but it will insulate you. So grass, leaves, that sort of thing. And that will actually create some nice insulation if you don't have a proper coat or a sleeping bag. So if I was caught out in those conditions without the gear I needed, that's what I would do. However, there's no reason to get caught out in those conditions without the gear you need. Always take a tarp. Always take a tarp. The key is to practice in advance. Thank you so much for listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast today. And until the next show, please do get out there and have some fun.